You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
Welcome to Women's Media Center Live. I'm Robin Morgan. Now, when you hear the names Rwanda and Afghanistan, normally, I think probably your tendency would be to wince and want to crawl back into bed and curl up in a fetal position, just because of the weight of suffering we know has gone on in those two places, in particular, but not exclusively, but especially women. And yet, my two guests, one of whom will take us in imagination to Rwanda, and the other of whom speaks to us directly from Kabul in Afghanistan, both tell stories of astonishing hope. So, buckle your seatbelts, and first we have to go inside the headlines. This week, we're going to start with the big picture. It's a little uncomfortable, but sheer scale might make the miseries we face with Trump seem like being nibbled to death by ducks. Scientists announced Wednesday that one of the largest icebergs in recorded history just broke loose from Antarctica at the Larsen C ice shelf. The massive iceberg is more than 2,200 square miles in area, weighs 1 trillion tons, is almost the size of Delaware, and consists of nearly 4 times as much ice as the fast-melting ice sheet of Greenland loses in 1 year. The common barn swallow, the giraffe, the cheetah, the African lion, the Sumatran orangutan. Thousands of animal species are in precipitous decline, signaling an irreversible era of mass extinction now underway. That's according to a new study published last week by the National Academy of Sciences. This decline, termed a global epidemic, is part of the ongoing 6th mass extinction, caused in large measure by human destruction of animal habitats. The previous 5 extinctions were caused by natural phenomena. The so-called normal extinction rate over the past 2 million years has been that 2 species go extinct every century because of evolutionary and other factors. Conservatively, scientists estimate that in the past century, 200 species have gone extinct. Well, this start with a big picture plan wasn't such a great idea. We might all get so depressed we won't last long enough to get nibbled to death by ducks who were probably going to be extinct anyway. So, on to regular news. Judge Stephen O'Neill, who declared a mistrial in Bill Cosby's sexual assault case after jurors reported they were deadlocked, has now rescheduled the trial for November 6th. Again in Pennsylvania, so mark your calendars, please, Pennsylvania area people. The Spanish airline Iberia has been fined for discrimination, so it will now drop its mandatory pregnancy test that female flight attendant candidates had to take before they were even hired. Iberia kept trying to defend the test in the name of safety, but the women, union officials, and finally the government had another name for it: sexism. When 18-year-old Tulasi Shahi got her menstrual period, she was sent to stay in her uncle's hut, where he ties up his cows in a village in western Nepal. She slept on wooden boards on the ground in a tradition that sequesters menstruating women. But while sleeping, she was bitten by a poisonous snake, and the shaman could not cure her, while the health clinic lacked the anti-venom medication she needed. Tulasi died because of superstition. In 2005, the Supreme Court of Nepal ordered an end to the practice of menstrual sequestering, and a bill currently pending in Parliament would formally criminalize the practice. And that's needed because the practice does persist, as does the belief that menstruating women are impure and bring bad luck. Another teenage girl died in the same district of Daikelch 6 weeks earlier, also from snakebite, while in the menstrual hut. And a 15-year-old in another part of Nepal died in a menstrual shed in December, killed by smoke inhalation after she lit a fire in the hut to keep warm. Nepali women are now clamoring to move the pending bill on criminalization into law. It's not as though women in Saudi Arabia don't get enough exercise because they spend so much time driving their cars. Still, the Education Ministry announced that physical education for girls will start with the coming academic year. Woohoo! No details about what kind of PE activities will be offered, but there was an assurance that they would be introduced gradually and, quote, in accordance with Sharia rules. The rabidly conservative clergy oppose this, of course, because any kind of exercise in sports, as one of them announced, quote, go against women's nature and cause them to develop muscles that make them look like men, close quote. Saudi Arabia first allowed sports for girls in private schools 4 years ago, and in 2012 the kingdom included 2 female athletes in its delegation to the London Olympic Games because the International Olympic Committee said the country would be barred if it sent only men. As for PE, there are no trained female gym teachers in Saudi Arabia, and most girls' schools lack any sports facilities. But then it's only been 50 years since the first girls' schools opened, over protests, of course. We'll deal with politics at home and with the latest Trump clump of news at the end of the program this week in Fighting Words. But I'll close this segment with a return to the big picture, one that's actually heartening, even charming, doubly charming, as in charmed quarks. Physicists at the CERN Particle Physics Laboratory in Geneva have spotted a particle long predicted but never detected until now. The new particle, called CC+, might provide new insight into how quarks, the building blocks of protons and neutrons, interact. The particle, a baryon consisting of 2 heavy charm quarks, that's the double charm, and 1 up quark, is not stable. It falls apart after somewhere between 50 millionths of 1 billionth of a second and 1,000 millionths of a billionth of a second. Still, there's something infinitely touching about this search, about humans, the same humans who cling to superstition, who drive other species into extinction, who melt the world. Some of them anyway, not yet enough of them, but some of them, spend their lives, generation after generation, searching through an entire lifetime of awe, trying in myriad ways, trying to discover how it works, how it all works. We have to take a short break here at Women's Media Center Live. I'm Robin Morgan, and I'll be back in just a moment. You know, when you think about Rwanda, or hear the word, you think immediately of atrocity, of genocide, and yet, in just a moment, we'll hear from a woman who has a very different picture of Rwanda, and it's all due to the power of women. So don't go away.
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
Welcome back. My first guest is Swanee Hunt. She's a perfect example of someone who is born into a family of privilege and wealth, and very Republican, in fact very right-wing, but who turns it all topsy-turvy, upside down, to spend her life working for particularly female human rights, but human rights in general. She currently is the chair of the Washington-based Institute for Inclusive Security, which includes the Women Waging Peace Network, and which advocates integrating women into peace processes. She is the Eleanor Roosevelt Lecturer in Public Policy at Harvard University's Kennedy School of Government, and she's the founding director of the Women and Public Policy program at the Kennedy School, and she's a former United States ambassador to Austria. Many awards, much work. organizing women's conferences in Bosnia, working to secure peace in the former Yugoslavia. But today she's here to talk about her work in Rwanda and about a book which she has put together of Rwanda women's voices and images called Rwanda Women Rising. And it's my great pleasure to present Swanee Hunt. Swanee, welcome to the program.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be here.
This book, Rwandan Women Rising, by Swanee Hunt, with a foreword by Jimmy Carter, our dear former president, who looks better and better with every day.
Yeah, really. I know.
He's 90 and fighting brain cancer, and he's still more brilliant than the guy who's occupying our White House. Anyway.
Moving on.
Moving right along. This is amazing. I mean, Rwandan women, of course, are amazing. 64% of the seats in the elected House of Parliament are held by women. It's unrivaled by any other nation, and they have got to that place from absolute hell on earth, which we all remember from the Rwandan genocide, basically. You've worked in that region, you know these women, and this book has taken 16 years to compile these portraits and voices. Tell us how it came to be, how you embarked on this.
Right. Well, I was asked by the American Embassy to come to Rwanda in 2000, and I thought I was going to give a speech at a conference, and lo and behold, I mean, I walked into an unbelievable situation. I knew a bit about the genocide. I didn't understand what hell on earth means in terms of how you described it. It was like 1 out of 10 people had been slaughtered in 3 months. It was just unbelievable. That would be like 32 Americans killed this summer.
That's right.
Murdered.
Yeah.
Murdered. I mean, not just dying on the highway,
No.
And so when I got there, I thought about, these poor women victims, all the rapes. And then I realized, no, this isn't about women victims. And they opened my eyes. But I came to work on this. I had an institute called Inclusive Security, and a lot of that is based on the women in Rwanda, because I work, in 40 different war zones, and it really is about what those women in Rwanda proved. They were what in academia you would call a proof of concept. They proved that when women are highly involved, they can help heal a country even after genocide. And Robin, I know I'm talking too much, but let me tell you.
No, this is your interview.
Per conversation that you and I have had, when you're in a situation like we are politically.
Yes.
And there are all these pundits wringing their hands and saying, our nation is so deeply divided, what will ever happen? You know what? I know what deeply divided looks like. This is not deeply divided.
That's
deeply
interesting.
Divided means you've been murdering each other.
Yes.
Let's just keep it in context. And women were able to heal the deeply divided.
Yes. Well, and not unconnected and highly interesting to you and me and life on the planet is that the resistance in this country to the homophobia, the Islamophobia, all the phobias, this fake populism, all of that has been coming largely from women, with men of conscience certainly involved. But the Women's March kicked it all off. And that's an interesting question, come to think of it, Swanee. Does it have to get so bad before finally a society will pay attention to the more than half of it that is female? I mean, I don't think so either. But sometimes, you look at Rwanda and you think, it was brought out of ashes largely by women.
Well, it is true that chaos cracks open a culture.
Right.
That is true. But I would say, and when you have the cracks, then the women can move into those spaces.
Yeah.
But I say right now we do have political chaos. And this is the moment.
Yeah.
I'll give you the parallel. What I'm hearing from news shows is that lots and lots of people in Congress are deciding not to run. It's just too fraught. Mm-hmm. They go home and then there's town meetings and it's hell, right?
Yes, those wonderful town meetings.
Yeah, I know. And it's not getting better for them because
right.
there's more fuel coming from the White House. So with open seats, there's an opportunity for women to win in large numbers. But women have to be organized, and we have to be supporting them. And the women running. Look, we women who aren't going to run, we need to be talking to women all over the place. You should run, you should run, you should run, you should run, and I'll be on your finance committee. And 92%, I think it's 92, you would know, of people in Congress, they are automatically re-elected. 100 out of our Congress, out of the House, don't even have an opponent. Yeah. So this election next year is key.
Huge. Yes, it is.
Key, and this is when women ought to be flooding into those seats.
Well, fortunately, more women are thinking of running or training to run now than ever in the history of the country, and that I find enormously encouraging. Let's get back to Rwanda and the book for a moment.
Sure.
There are 70 stories in here, and each one is so compelling and so moving, from women who made it into government, who created the new government out of ashes and skulls, to grassroots organizers, sometimes the same woman doing both those things. Give us a few sample stories to give us people a taste. It has beautiful pictures as well, just photographs.
Sure, thank you. And as you know, it's not a matter of here 70 stories lined up. It's really topical. Like, how did women come to be in these positions? What difference does it make? And then the women are talking throughout that. But it's women like Annunziata. Okay, mm-hmm. So her. She ends up, there's the forces are coming, there's hell on earth, and people are being slaughtered in the streets, and she flees, and she's in a doghouse, literally in a doghouse, with her 2-year-old, and she gives birth in the doghouse. Yeah. Now she comes out when the troops come, and they've chased away the genocidaire, and so she gets out of the doghouse, and then she goes into a church because she has nowhere to go. She wanders into this church, and the priest says, "Well, I have a meeting of widows. Come and be with them." And she sits there, and they're all the other group that did the slaughtering. Yeah. And they're the wives of the men who are now in prison for that. And she's sitting there next to them, thinking, I've got to feed my children. They have to feed the men in prison. There's no food in the prison, so the women are going every day. And so she is making food, literally stirring a pot of food that is going to feed her 2 children, but most of it is going to go into the prisons to feed the men who killed her family. And out of those kinds of experiences, she becomes an activist. Yeah. That's the key, is she becomes an activist, as do the other women. And that's how the country gets healed together. It's very, very granular.
But it's also,
and then
each one is,
then they're big policies. Go ahead.
I was just thinking each story is like a transcendence of the human spirit. I mean, it's like rising above. It's secular, but I mean, it is the best of the human spirit rising above and moving forward. I mean, there's forgiveness, there's mercy, or there's never mind, let's link arms and go forward as women. That's what's so just devastatingly powerful about this book.
There's a justice system they put together, the women do, where these 800,000 men who are in prisons, they come out and they confess, and they're forgiven by their villages, and they're reintegrated into the villages. Yeah. And that's what you have to do if you're going to heal. You can rant and rave about this person did these horrible things, but ultimately, is he coming back into the village? Yeah.
Well, the only other, I mean, it's comparable, but better, and without a formal structure to what South Africa attempted with Truth and Reconciliation. But that was a commission, a formal commission and hearings and so forth, which is fine. I often think we need something like that in this country over slavery and racism. But But the women did it informally. They didn't, have, it's that different women's way of going about things. They weren't pompous. They didn't have commissions. They didn't, they just acted. I mean, that's the miracle, I think, of the Rwandan women. How can it be made a model for everywhere, actually, if possible?
Right,
How can it?
Well, to your point, there are 15,000 villages in Rwanda. So that's what we're talking about, is 15,000 times this. And I don't want to say anything about anything negative about the South African. The women of Rwanda actually went there to learn from them. But if you think about it in our own country, you're talking about who is sitting around the Thanksgiving table or the Easter table, or who's at the 4th of July. Right?
Yeah.
It includes your cousins who are on the other side of you politically. And so the question is, women are so relational that if we turn on that part of our brains and we think about it ahead of time and say, I am going to welcome my cousin with open arms. And it's not just that we won't talk about it, it's that we'll find common ground here. And we'll talk about things that we both believe in terms of what our country needs. And if you take that and you multiply it by 100 million, I mean, come on, we have a new country. If you multiply it by just 1 million.
Right, that's right. That's right.
But that's what women can do. And that's not to say that they shouldn't do the policy piece of running for office and supporting each other. But at the granular level, there's a lot we can do.
Yes. It's what the late Corinne Horrible, who we lost recently, the wonderful organizer from Minnesota who was the real behind-the-scenes author of Convention to End All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, used to call potluck supper politics.
I think that's right.
Feed each other food and ideas, and it makes for a bond.
It absolutely does. Yeah. Absolutely. I have a sister who is a very strong Trump supporter, and she and I adore each other. And she calls me each election and says, whatever happens, we love each other. And I say, whatever happens, we love each other. And that's what we have to have across our families, but across our communities as a whole.
Well, this is across a country, and it's a model, I think, for the world. The book is called Rwandan Women Rising. It's a beautiful book. It's a book to read straight through or to dip into, because the individual stories are unforgettable. It's by Swanee Hunt and has a lovely interview by former President Jimmy Carter. And it's a book to run out or order online and get a hold of right now. Swanee, thanks for the book. Thanks for everything that you do, both officially in your ambassadorial statuses and your academic ones and policy ones and your grassroots activism as well. Thanks for being with us today.
Thank you, Robin.
And now it's time for the Surrealism Corner. You might have heard about this one, but if you haven't, you must. And if you have, it's good enough to repeat. On the 4th of July, NPR, National Public Radio, followed its 29-year tradition and republished, this time on Twitter, in 113 consecutive tweets, the complete text of the Declaration of Independence, line by line. Oh my God. Trump trolls, supremacists, and other morons replied in droves, denouncing the message as being everything from spam through left-wing propaganda to treason. Some wrote, "How dare you lefties call Trump a tyrant?" Others demanded that NPR should be defunded for pushing such liberal material. When NPR republished the date of the document, July 4th, 1776, there was a resounding silence. Only one of the critics had the sense to formally apologize for not having realized an OG and sorry for being such a dork. While we're on mean-spirited morons and dorks, let's do some Trump items. I know I'm near rock bottom when I find myself siding with the Pentagon in its struggle to be the force waging American wars. That's because Trump is considering pulling the United States military out of Afghanistan, but wait, only so that the hapless country can instead be invaded and controlled by Trump's mercenary businessmen buddies, Eric Prince, founder of the infamous private security firm Blackwater Worldwide, and Steven Feinberg, a billionaire financier who owns the giant military contractor Dynacorp International. These two Rambos have developed a strategic proposal that would appoint an American viceroy to run the country and enforce his rule, and it would be him, through contractors or so-called private military units instead of American troops. Conflict of interest there? Ugh, picky, picky, picky. The mercenary moguls developed this plan at the request of Steve Bannon, Trump's personal Svengali, and Jared Kushner, his senior advisor's son-in-law, who's tasked with running everything while knowing nothing, and who might soon be on his way to prison for having committed treason. Under Prince, Blackwater employees in one of the most notorious episodes of the Iraq War were criminally convicted of having opened fire in a Baghdad square, killing 17 civilians. Prince first tried rebranding Blackwater, then sold his stake in the firm in 2010, but assembled another army for hire for the United Arab Emirates. He has built a paramilitary empire in the Middle East and Asia, with contracts for his company now called Frontier Services Group. He secretly represented the Trump gang in that hidden meeting with high-ranking Russians in the Seychelles Islands, the meeting currently under investigation by Special Counsel Robert Mueller. Oh, and Prince's sister, Betsy DeVos, is Trump's anti-public school education secretary. Politico reports that the White House Council for Women and Girls, created under President Obama to focus on gender equity, will likely go dark under Trump. Well, I'm actually ambivalent about this one. Maybe it's better to shutter gender equity while Trump has any brief hegemony, since the Trumpian version of gender equity might consist of, say, declaring prostitution not only legal, but a very, very successful, terrific, very, very incredible job creator, so they could rename women assets and sell us to build equity in purchasing more real estate properties for Donald Trump. Now, that's not what we mean by equity, but how would they ever know? This next item is delightfully real, but makes it into the surrealism corner because it's also happily surreal that this fine and fun work of art has not only lasted so long, but has even improved, like a vintage wine. Desert Hearts, the 1986 award-winning film by Donna Deitch, was the first time a love story between two women made it to the big screen without one of them ending up gibbering in a psycho ward or hanging a limp suicide from the rafters. It's not only a lesbian feminist classic that changed many women's consciousness and lives, it's now a classic, a film classic, digitally restored in the Museum of Modern Art permanent collection, and if you're lucky, playing in re-release at your local art theater in Phoenix, Arizona, Los Angeles, and lots of other smart places, including Brooklyn, New York, and at Manhattan's Independent Film Forum over the next several weeks. So check your local listings, as they say. Women from Femen, an anarcho-feminist collective that originated in Ukraine and is now Paris-based, disrupted a jazz concert in Hamburg, Germany last week because Woody Allen was on stage playing clarinet. The women said they wanted to draw attention to the accusation that he had sexually abused his adoptive daughter, Dylan Farrow, in 1992 when she was 7. In February of 2014, Dylan reiterated the accusation in an open letter to her now 81-year-old father, who in an op-ed essay in the New York Times had denied the accusation and said she probably had been coached by her mother. Yeah, sure. And I simply must include this last one. After the shooting of Republican legislators at a congressional baseball practice in Virginia last month, remember when I said on this program that though logic should make those guys reconsider their avid pro-gun legislative positions, instead they would probably want to loosen gun laws so they could have had a shootout at OK Corral on the baseball diamond? Well, I should watch my mouth, as my aunt kept telling me when I was 7. Except this is really not my fault. These men would have done something this surreal and stupid all on their own. Yes, during the past 2 weeks, 3 bills introduced in the Republican-held House would allow lawmakers to almost always carry a concealed weapon. A 4th would allow concealed carry permits from other states to be recognized in the District of Columbia. All this while their colleague Steve Scalise of Louisiana, the majority whip, is back in the hospital with infective complications from the shooting. The GOP guys, apparently unable to legislate anything else, at least want to be packing. Wonderful thing, words. Next year, let's send them packing. Time for another short break here at Women's Media Center Live. I'm Robin Morgan, and I'll be back in just a moment when you should prepare to have all your assumptions, or at least 99% of them, about Afghanistan surprised and turned inside out. In just a minute.
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
And we're back again. Nargis Azaryun is an Afghan filmmaker, law student, writer, and an activist for women and for youth. She is the founder of Road to Equality and Development, RED, and she'll talk about that. But today she's with us because she's also one of the editors of Gelara magazine, which bills itself as the first lifestyle and fashion magazine in Afghanistan's history. Well, you may wonder, why are we covering that? But it's coming in under the Afghan radar, because buried there, not so deeply buried, are articles that may change Afghan women's lives, masked and protected by seeming to be frivolous. So much so that it doesn't even post a street address, because the Taliban, what's left of them, and the religious extremists will be after them for even wanting women to read. So some things have not changed that much in Kabul, but an awful lot has. This is a bi-monthly magazine. Their first issue, they printed 2,000 copies, and it's all been done by voluntary work by students and journalists from across Afghanistan and from other parts of the world. The founder, Fatana Hassanzada, tried to be with us, but she was out in the country selling the magazine, and hopes that revenue from sales, each copy costs about $1.05, and she hopes that publicity and that cost will be taken care of, and the magazine will be a success. We hope so too, and here is Nargis Azaryun all the way from Kabul. Nargis, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Well, we're speaking with Nargis all the way from New York to Kabul, and we're grateful that you're with us today. You are involved in so many things. You're a filmmaker, you're a law student, you're a writer, you've been an activist for youth. Most of the Afghan feminist leaders and activists that I know are older, the older generation, and it's so wonderful to see this explosion happening among the youth. Talk about that.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I think that as we have more schools opening for young people in Afghanistan, more universities opening, there's a lot of chance for youngsters to meet and discuss and share ideas about how they want to move forward. And there is a big movement that's now starting that I think is the first time happening in the history of Afghanistan. More younger voice with new ideologies, new programs, and I think that's the path that Afghanistan needs to go. And it's very exciting to see other people coming after us also engaging in a lot of exciting programs, and of course the ones who started before us as a bridge that help us see the world from a bigger perspective.
People like Sima Samar, Yeah. I mean, amazing.
Sima Samar, Fawzia Kufi, Shukriya Barksai, all these women who were the pioneers of women's movements in Afghanistan, and were the first women to get involved in politics, in medical, in schools, and in law field, and they basically established that women are not only for houses, and then everybody else is just like trying to find their way out and reach those qualifications.
Yeah. And the magazine is part of this new explosion of progress in Nargis. Talk about Galara. Is it? Am I pronouncing it correctly? Galara?
Yes, Galara. It's pronounced like Galara. Well, basically, we've been working on Galara for some time now, and we just had the first launch. We had the first copy. We printed around 2,000 copies, and by now, today that we're talking, we've run out of copies in Afghanistan. It's a fashion magazine. It's the first time that has came in Kabul. We basically have fashion magazines money in other countries, and there were none in Afghanistan. And as there are more youth engaging in social activities, I think a place for that was empty in Kabul. And so we came together, a group of young girls who were aged between 16 to 30. So that includes young girls from schools, but also from universities, and the ones who have graduated from universities. And we work on not only fashion issues, but other issues that are related to women's lives in Afghanistan. And we try to engage them in social discussions, create role models, speak about women's health. We're aiming that this magazine will cover a lot of issues that have been taboo and have not been spoken about for a long time in Afghanistan. And hopefully, as we move, we will be moving toward that goal.
Yeah, it sounds as if you're following a sort of collective unconscious pattern that has been in other countries for a couple of centuries, which is that when women have when women have no way of yet, or at least a very fragile way of getting together and comparing notes and beginning to rise up against their own condition, their current condition, the way of getting that out is usually under the guise of more quote-unquote acceptable material. In the 19th century, in Britain and the United States, there were quote-unquote fashion magazines, but they had articles about, maybe here or there, an article about suffrage or about child custody rights, and you are sneaking in news about breast cancer, and you ran an essay on a proposed family law that was delayed for years by the reactionaries. So it's sort of like an underground message made more supposedly acceptable. Unfortunately, the ultra conservatives are never fooled by that, so they come after you. They come after you anyway, don't they?
They do. They find their ways. I mean, that a couple of days ago, another friend of mine was asking me that, well, there is the mullahs who are completely the opposite, but then there is another group of people who are the people who wear tie and like look nice and all that, but their ideology is still like the mullahs. And those are the real challenges, because when they object and when they interfere in these kind of work, because they have found some legitimacy in the eyes of people too, then it makes it even harder for us to battle them and to fight them.
Yes,
and like you say, they always find their way to come back and challenge. But I think that's good, because then that will make us stronger, I think, because then we will produce better content. We will have arguments to support our content in order to make sure that if there are ideas coming from society as those ones, we are able to argue against, and we're able to provide reasoning and convince them. And that these are important issues. We need to start talking about these.
This is the first time there's been such a magazine, correct, in Afghanistan?
Yes. Yes, this is the first time ever.
So
we did have other magazines. We had other magazines that spoke about women's issues. There's one that's issued by the Ministry of Women's Affairs, but it usually covers the government news and what the minister does and what are the departments doing, nothing of real content.
I have to ask a question that I would pretty much stake my life on, is in the minds of a number of our listeners who might know less about Afghanistan than we would wish they would. One question would be, a magazine under the guise of being a fashion magazine in Afghanistan isn't isn't that a sort of ne plus ultra in that there's a high rate of non-literacy among women, and the religious fundamentalists keep it that way. And also, what fashion, because so many women are wearing the burqa and are in big trouble if they don't. So address those two questions, please.
Yes. I think the literacy rate is raising. Mm-hmm. We have hundreds and thousands of girls going to schools now and all over Afghanistan.
Right.
We've never had as many girls going to universities in history of Afghanistan as we do now. We have over thousands graduating from universities, and there is this population of educated young girls who are graduating, who are ready to be shaped, who are ready to be guided, who are ready to be helped into understanding what mm-hmm. kind of career or path they want to choose and move forward. So our aim is that we are going to target those graduate students, and also a lot of women who are at the houses who have been able to have some literacy. They are able to read, for example, but mm-hmm. not critical thinking and stuff like that. But right. So we are hoping that we will reach to those women too, because we have different kinds of selling mechanisms. We go to different places mm-hmm. to sell for different kinds of audience. And the question about the burqa, surprisingly, burqa is gone from Afghanistan. Not many women are wearing the burqa anymore. If you mean the blue burqa, or you meant the scarf.
In the Taliban-held areas when they're, when it was mandatory. But that was mostly agrarian, that was mostly rural, correct?
Yes, it was. Back then during the Taliban regime, it was compulsory for everybody.
Right.
But today, when you come to Kabul, right. you wouldn't see many of the women wearing burqa anymore. Uh-huh. There is a style has changed. People wear scarf more like the Iranian style in uh-huh. some parts of Afghanistan and some provinces. Right. But in Kabul, in center, people are really dressing modern. Like, there is no law to tell me that I need to wear my scarf. And in a lot of places, right. there are many girls who don't even wear their scarves right. when going to public places or universities and stuff and then other places. Right. So I think that's changing too, because we are exposed to more information. We're exposed to more TV shows, programs, channels, and all of that, mm-hmm. whether we like it or not, has effect on how society is going to be shaped and what is going to be acceptable clothes and wear. So that has changed. There are not young girls don't wear burqa anymore, mm-hmm. Especially in Kabul, especially in North provinces. It has decreased to a beautiful amount, I think. People usually wear jeans, shirts, and then a scarf, yeah. and with that you can do a lot.
Take a moment and talk about the NGO that you recently founded, Road to Equality and Development, RED.
The aim for RED, for my organization, my NGO, is that we try to be a bridge between these different ethnicities uh-huh. to come together, to accept each other, to understand each other, uh-huh. regardless of the differences, and actually look at the differences that we have as ethnicities as beautiful additions to what Afghanistan would represent. Sadly, throughout history, this ethnic diversity has been one element that has torn our nation apart.
Yeah.
It's like basically different countries.
Yeah.
People from one ethnicity don't really know much about the other ethnicity. So we are trying to be the bridge and be the group and the organization that on a yearly basis brings youth from all parts of Afghanistan together and gives them a chance to understand each other better, to experience life and to see life from one another's perspective, and basically grow respect for each other, understand each other, and understand that if we want to move forward as a country, the only way is if we share hands.
Yes.
And work together.
It's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. One last question, Nargis. We here we in the United States are convulsed at the moment with our own insane administration.
I can imagine.
Oh my God. But for the moment, leaving that aside, and we're rising up at grassroots levels and at medium and at top levels to oppose it and to hopefully bring it down sooner rather than later. But
good luck. I hope that works.
Thank you. We all do. The world does. The planet does. All life forms hope that. But
Yes.
tell me, we're told, well, if the United States were to leave, then the Taliban clearly has been just waiting and biding its time. Now possibly making an alliance with Daesh, with ISIL. Then on the other hand, we're told so that the U.S. should stay. On the other hand, we're told the U.S. should get the hell out once and for all. We had no business being there to begin with, except there was 9/11, and so it gets complicated. What do you think progressive young Afghans think about the U.S. presence there?
I am for it. I support it, and I think majority of the people my age and my generation support the presence of America in Afghanistan, because at the moment we need international community in Afghanistan. We need the support that they give us. We need the security help that they are providing for us, because sadly the alternative to that would be Taliban or Daesh or even more extreme groups of terrorists that are going to be sponsored by other countries, whether we like it or not. Okay. So I think that we are able to move forward. We are able to go towards democracy. We are able to hold elections. We are able to go to schools because there is support from the U.S. and because there's support from other international communities that believe in these values that are being promoted in Afghanistan. And I think if they leave at this point, Afghanistan will go to chaos. Uh-huh. It will be another Iraq. It will be a safe haven for terrorism again, and that will not only destroy the lives of Afghans, but also be a big threat to the security of the world and the global security. Yeah, well, so we need the international community. We need the U.S. to remain in Afghanistan, to have a policy of at least for another 30 years until things are all right in Kabul.
Well, I hope while we're busy bringing quote-unquote democracy to Afghanistan, that we can bring it back here at home.
I hope so too. I hope so too.
Yeah, because what we have a Christian Taliban operating here.
I understand that. Yes.
I know you do, my dear. But I am so grateful to you for being with us and for your wisdom, so young and so wise, and for all the really courageous and helpful work that you do for women and for men as well. Thank you so much. And please give my love and my admiration to Fatana Hassanzada, the founder of the magazine, and to everybody who works on the magazine. It is so impressive.
I will do that. Thank you very much.
Time for one last break here at Women's Media Center Live. This is Robin Morgan, and you can be sure of it. I'll be back in just a moment with some fighting words.
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
And we're back again with some fighting words. People, serious stuff is happening. Like yet another Senate attempt to slither through a health bill that will literally kill Americans. Like the United Nations ending its cholera vaccination campaign in Yemen because the rampant spread of the disease there, combined with growing famine, both of which are side effects of the devastation of war, would obliterate such vaccination efforts. Not that anyone really gives a damn about Yemen, where a proxy regional power struggle is being waged between Shiite Iran and Sunni Saudi Arabia, who are proxies in turn for Russia, it's pro-Iran, and the United States, pro-Saudi Arabia, except now that the U.S. and Russia are trying to Trumputinize, so Yemen's roadkill. Can you imagine how bad things must be for the United Nations to announce it's abandoning an agonized little failed state, the poorest in the Arab world, abandoning it to what is, in effect, obliteration? But I digress. No, actually, I don't. We need to be making these connections. Serious stuff is happening, and we're still having to be preoccupied with the grotesqueries of a gravely disturbed man and his enabling family. I say having to be preoccupied, since it's not as if we can go on our way or address other matters while ignoring Trump when he and his clan appear bent on destroying democracy, our republic, and, well, life on our planet. And if that comes across as extreme, it's because even understatement sounds hyperbolic when accurately describing the excesses of this regime. One straw I cling to in my wild rage at our having to spread our activist energy over so many fronts at once is the feeling that women probably invented multitasking. Another comforting thought is that these multiple fronts reteach us how deeply issues and solutions are related, and how crucial it is for us to keep seeking and making the connections ourselves. Environment is inseparable from population, which is based in reproductive rights connected to women's rights, requiring economic justice linked with literacy. Sexism and racism are inextricably intertwined with concepts of the other and with each other. Superstition is necessary in order to demonize science. Violence in the state originates with violence in the family. Let's zoom in on that last one. The Trumps are an unfunny Addams family, all ghoul and vampire, no Witter style, and given to violence in their family values. The fathers all boasted about their non-parenting. Friedrich, the German immigrant barber, made his money as a 19th-century Gold Coast brothel keeper, a pimp, bequeathing to his namesake son a fortune and so-called killer business practices. That Friedrich Jr. became Frederick, went into real estate, and intensified the bad practices so effectively he was investigated by a U.S. Senate Committee for Wartime Profiteering in 1954, and by the Justice Department for landlord civil rights violations in 1973. In turn, he left the same toxic legacy to his junior, Freddie, who responded with alcoholism and suicide. But another son eagerly stepped up, Donald. His junior has now just succeeded in supplying the first flames everyone knew were somewhere, what with all the smoke billowing from Trump corruption of our electoral system. There was a time when Don Jr. wasn't yet doomed, when he refused to speak to his father at age 12 after his parents' brutal public divorce, and then again after graduating from his alcohol-saturated college years. But apparently he found himself in the great outdoors killing endangered animals, and in blaming his mother for, his quote, manipulating him into estrangement from his father, close quote. Then in joining his father's business and reality TV exploits, and more recently in anti-Semitic, racist, Islamophobic, and insanely anti-factual tweets, like the one where he compared desperate refugees to a bowl of Skittles. And now Don Jr. has managed to brandish the open-carry smoking gun that implicates his brother-in-law Jared, the campaign, the transition, and yes, Daddy-O, in crimes and misdemeanors even unto treason. Oh, by the way, Don Jr. and his wife Vanessa Hayden have 2 daughters and 3 sons, one of whom is named Donald J. Trump III. The poor kid will have to live down that name. Meanwhile, are we surprised that these newly surfaced entanglements with the Russian government, mob, and oligarchs were earlier cemented during Trump Sr.'s Miss Universe pageant being staged in Moscow in 2013? We are not surprised. Such men operate best surrounded by objectified female bodies clad in bathing suits while nowhere near water, tottering on heels so high they can't run anywhere. I am surprised if anyone at this point is surprised. It's really just a matter of making the connections. Those are my fighting words. Add yours on Twitter, and remember to tag us at WMC Live and use the hashtag #FightingWords. And that's it for today. This program is syndicated, but if you can't find the broadcast on a radio station in your area, you can always visit us at WMClive.com for the show, plus the archive of all our previous episodes, and at iTunes Worldwide, where you can stream, download, and subscribe to our show's podcast. Also, be sure to find WMC Live on Facebook and Twitter. And you can check out my own website and blog at robinmorgan.net and find me on Facebook and Twitter, too. Portions of this program were taped earlier. Opinions expressed here do not necessarily represent the WMC. Here's the family for Women's Media Center Live. WMC President and Executive Producer of this program, Julie Burton, and our founding and sustaining sponsor, Regina K. Scully. I'm Robin Morgan, your producer and host. Thank you for being with us, and don't forget to join us next week right here on Women's Media Center Live.
For the smartest talk about news, politics, sex, books, religion, race, and more, tune your radio to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan. Audacious, witty, provocative, informative, and fun. It's Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan on WMCLive.com. Talk radio with a brain.